Okay, let's check out the audience response. 28, so higher than the Prime Minister. All right, let's continue on. Deputy Prime Minister, it's your turn.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am deputy of the deputy of the opening government, and I'm going to start with some of the opposition to what have the leading opposition have mentioned. First of all, they have mentioned that the sanctity of life should be valued in everything comes first. However, the voluntary euthanasia is not the is actually a form of improving the sanctity of life. If a person have chosen to the euthanasia in order to reduce the pain, and then or like just leaving them alone to have suffering from the pain is actually like ignoring their sanctity of life. Furthermore, that the opposing government have mentioned the suicide and the euthanasia is same with this kind of enduring the suffering and the enduring of the suffering from the diseases. However, it is fundamentally different. The people who commit suicide is just because of their mental problems, and it can be resolved with the other social like methods, like asking people to have for the solutions or having a conversation with the other people and improving this society. However, the person who that
You have mentioned that people can overcome their suicidal thoughts by having education or asking for advice. However, in our society, is it really practical? I think that your suggestion is very idealistic because most of them commit suicide because they can't attain these education, and they don't feel the need to take any education.
Actually, it is because of our society, and I think it is our duty to just change our society to my idealistic way. Because like many people think that people cannot have the solutions by asking to the people who is around them. However, by asking the questions about the problems with the teachers around them or the calling to the other people who can help us, actually is beneficial. Also, I have mentioned that the suicide is different from the committing from the euthanasia. Euthanasia is usually made when the people cannot suffer under the disease anymore, and then like when it is like it is almost impossible to be resolved or cured. It is the case that is usually euthanasia is made. So I think it is fundamentally different from it. Also, the opposition have mentioned that the euthanasia can be misused. However, euthanasia, if it regulated by having a by asking people or whether they have by just getting the agreement of the people themselves. Yep.
Yes, not only it can be misused, but the first speaker responded in my POI that euthanasia itself is not perfect. And how can euthanasia always guarantee those sanctity of life, those comfort of the patients?
Okay, so as our prime minister have mentioned, it is important to it can be resolved by just having a agreement before the accident, like whether if I have a serious pain and then like I almost agree to the euthanasia. Also, so you have said that can be misused. So according by posing our opinion, like if it regulates the people, like if they have it is mandatory for them to have a agreement before the performance of the euthanasia, and like asking the variety of doctors to before the having a euthanasia that there are no percentage of the disease to be cured. Also, if we ask the families who is around them and like they also have a problem, also can have a problem by suffering under the by looking at the patient suffering under the pain, and if they agree to if family agrees to have a euthanasia, I think this is it can be one solution to it. So for these reasons, I think the voluntary euthanasia have to be passed.
Okay, that was a Deputy Prime Minister arguing for the motion, arguing the government should allow voluntary euthanasia. In his argument, he rebutted some of the leader of opposition's argument by stating that suicide and euthanasia are fundamentally different. Okay, let's see the total number of green lights. It is 18 out of 50, putting the total for the opening government at 34 out of 100. Well done. All right, moving on to the deputy leader of opposition. Please step up to the podium.
Ladies and gentlemen, as a deputy leader of opposition, I like to say the sanctity of life can never be neglected, and it is the government's prior responsibility to value every one of the citizens' life. Before I move on to our second argument, I'd like to first make some rebuttals about the previous speaker. The previous speaker have stated that if a person chooses to die, leaving them alone is more ignoring the sanctity of a person. However, ladies and gentlemen, in the POI and rebuttal previously made by our team, we already asked them to give any specific solutions and to give us the ways how we can choose the way to die. We say that most of the patients or people who choose to die or who choose to have the euthanasia are too sick to have their rationality alive and to choose that if they will die or not. Therefore, even though we asked them again and again about how they will choose to die, they did not give us any answers about this. Also, the previous speaker have stated that if we have to change the society, we should change the society in the idealistic way. We agree that society should change, and the society should change, and it would be good if we can change the society in the idealistic way. However, ladies and gentlemen, they didn't give me any solutions or precise ones or ideas. There should be precise ideas if we want to change something and if we think something is completely wrong. Also, the previous speaker have stated that mandatory to get the argument is really important, and we can ask the doctors and we can ask the families about the ideas of if we should have the euthanasia or not. We agree about this idea, but in the later debate, we will prove why it is not appropriate idea to ask the doctors and families about euthanasia, and also it is the human's right that can be only respected when the human can decide if they themselves will die or not. Now, I'd like to move on to our team's argument. Our team's second argument is about the realistic harm and side effects of euthanasia. The biggest worry is that a right to die will create a silent form of coercion that cannot be dictated by the government and society officially. In the aging society, elders' value and their contribution is all too likely to be masked by the issue of the cost placed on the working age. Even where older people do not face pressure from their families, society needs to be aware about the wider narrative. Such a narrative will slow the creation of norm where elderly feel that they are burdened and is expected that they will exercise their right to die, which is actually not a right, a big burden to them. Once the right to die is normalized, those exercising it may not even consider that what they are doing is not really of their free will. Perceiving oneself as a burden is already a common cause of suicide in this society. Not having a right will stop the life negligence tendency going on further towards the creation of culture where individuals consider it normal that they should die when they feel a burden or hardships in their life. And we can think about another example about euthanasia. All of you will have heard about the Second War and Nazis who had a big Holocaust, the most vicious things human beings have ever made in this society and this history. Yes, right, big Holocaust. The Nazis in the Second War have killed thousands and millions of people only in the reason of euthanasia. We know that the Jews were killed and they were murdered. They didn't choose to die, or we know that they really wanted to live. However, the things they did, the really vicious actions they have committed is generalized and is okay by the name of euthanasia. Since euthanasia was allowed and legalized at that time, they say Holocaust was only a part of euthanasia, that they should have killed the burdens of society and they should have killed and eliminated the people who harmed the society. And also, we can think another part, because we cannot guarantee that this kind of vicious incident, like what Nazis have done, will never happen again. And we, the opposition side, say that allowing euthanasia and legalizing euthanasia will make more harms and this kind of vicious incidents later on. We can think about the benefits that other family members or people will gain from euthanasia. There are still people who are going to make side effects by the euthanasia. For example, we can think of the insurance and inheritance. People, the family members who want the money and who want something from the dead person and that family members can have a murder and killing on the name of euthanasia. Some vegetables or sick people, since they cannot think well, the euthanasia will be decided by the family members or a doctor who was dictating them. And even when they have the consciousness, they can decide by themselves because of the pressure made by families and because of the pressure made by money and economic parts, they will likely to be forced to make a voluntary choice, which is euthanasia and the death of their life. Therefore, by this, we believe we, the opening opposition, have clearly stated and well proved why we take the realistic and moral high ground of this debate. Thank you.
Okay, that was the Deputy Leader of Opposition arguing against the motion, and in laying out the reasons for why government should not legalize voluntary euthanasia, she mentioned that a right to die for some may very well become a duty to die by others, particularly those who are vulnerable or dependent upon their family members. Okay, the magic number we need to see is more than 6 to beat the opening government. 32. 32